So, for this BRI, how would you evaluate this initiative, and in particular the interconnectivity among countries, including infrastructure, and also the interconnectivity among the peoples?
First of all, and I would place my steps behind those of President Macron a year ago in Xi'an, when he delivered a speech on French-Chinese relations, and in particular on BRI, and said that the first reaction was to welcome BRI as a very positive development for connectivity and for development. This said, we've had many instances in the past of countries cooperating with each other, helping each other, etc. And that needs to be done with a few considerations in mind in order to have only positive development. And among these principles or these ideas, there's the fact that the new Silk Roads first should be green, that is to say, they should keep in mind the imperative we have to fight climate change.
Yes.
And it's a war that we are losing right now. The second thing is that there should be two-way roads, not just one-way street, and should not only be meant to export capital and goods and infrastructure to other countries, but also to bring imports and other things to China. And lastly, that it's important that in any joint cooperation that we would keep in mind the norms, principles and standards that have been established over the years by many countries helping other countries in order to avoid, for example, excessive debt. That's an important point. Otherwise, we will find ourselves back in the situation of the 1980s when we had a big debt crisis, largely done by the West, and that took a lot of time to resolve, to solve. And so that's really important. And of course, countries can get into the dependency of the creditor that they have. So norms and standards in terms of debt, in terms of transparency, etc. So, to summarize, a very positive development, but it should really keep in mind that we need these norms of transparency, good governance, and abide by these international principles so as to make them a real win-win situation.
So, what do you think have been the impact of this BRI since it was proposed by President Xi Jinping, and what's your general view of this?
Well, I think it had two impacts. The first one is some of the projects are starting to create effects in terms of connectivity, in terms of linking countries to one another, especially in some regions in Central Asia and elsewhere, and that's important. We also, as a second effect, took the measure of the importance that China is now playing in world affairs, and I think that was also a very positive development. And I would add one footnote, which is that we're also seeing the need to fine-tune some of these initiatives. There's been diverse reaction in some countries, from Malaysia to the Maldives, for example, pointing to the need precisely to think through the principal norms and practices on which the new Silk Roads will be built.
Yeah. Besides the problem you just mentioned, what do you think are the sustainability issues concerning BRI, and how would you propose China to tackle these issues?
I see two main issues there. One is financial sustainability, and it's really important because many of these countries do not necessarily have the necessary resources to abide or to allow themselves to take on big grants and big loans, and so it's really important to respect the ratio of debt over GDP that they can really absorb. The second aspect is environmental sustainability. here it's really important to keep in mind that we don't really have a choice. That is, it's not some sort of luxury that we would, give ourselves by saying, oh, I will respect the, a maximum level of CO2 emissions, etc. We need to incorporate that in all the infrastructure projects that we do, especially in the sector of energy. And so we should double our efforts to make sure that we stop using fire coal plants, and that we move to, at worst, natural gas, and at best, renewable energies. It's really important because over the medium and long term, if we live in a hotter and hotter, warmer planet, then there's really a big risk that everything we're doing in terms of development and
everything
economy
will be at stake.
Will be at stake, exactly.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, I was at the Boao Forum for Asia, and one of the themes was also about globalization and this BRI. And I remember that I attended a forum which a representative from Italy, he explained why Italy and China signed this MOU on BRI. And what was interesting was that he said that Italy will not be the only G7 countries to forge closer cooperation with China on this BRI. So in your view, what will be the outcome for France and China to interact on this connectivity issue on this BRI?
We didn't wait for 2019 to actually have concrete areas of cooperation in third countries, especially in Africa, but not only in Africa, between France and China, and this has been ongoing, which proves that the MOU is not central to good cooperation between France and China, and it should be done in keeping in mind that the EU has its own projects, the Asian Connectivity Project in particular, with lots of funds, lots of money invested in Central Asia and elsewhere, and we don't really need to put ourselves in that framework of the MOU in order to get good, concrete cooperation on the ground.
Thank you. So thank you again for your time.